There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Well, hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac, and I'm about to burst into tears. No, I'm not going to cry, but this is my very last. It's a Saturday Reads, probably for most of you. This is my last Friday or Saturday Reads, or whatever the hell day it is, from Tokyo. I did manage to find time to do it this morning. Apologies that the live feed didn't work out. I will explain that in just a minute. I was just about to say it's the last video that you will see from Tokyo, but that's not true. I have umpteen more book hauls and book on hauls and one or two other videos that are still in the editing pipeline. I am moving to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada today, but you're going to see videos that I filmed weeks or months ago, far into the future, so don't be confused, okay? I really needed to do this today to just kind of set the tone. Kenji's sleeping. It's just after 7 a.m. There's a crow for you, you of the crow, you that love crows so much. I thought, yeah, this would just really kind of settle me. I'm probably jittery, and I do have a few books to talk about, but mostly just to talk. So, and this is probably my very last can of coffee from Japan. I might sneak one in at the airport or something. I don't think since I left Canada 13 years ago that they have started having canned coffee in vending machines, have they? So yeah, here we go. Pretty much the only reason why I didn't do the live feed that I promised on Friday morning at 7 a.m. local time was because of my pocket Wi-Fi. And you can't do a live feed without pocket Wi-Fi, but I hadn't thought about that part of it. And then the complications of that. Sean, just tell the story. I went to the phone store where I rent it from about 10 days ago, and they said, oh, you owe and said I was going to leave on May 28th. They said, oh, you owe one more 2-month payment that'll cover you till the end of May, but you don't have to pay anything, because a lot of service providers, I think here, there, and everywhere, not just in Japan, really ding you at the end. You have to give them 700 days notice or they're going to charge you into the future. But no, this was going to be shut off if I came back on May 25th and gave them the notification. It would be turned off and end of story. No further financial obligations. So that's what I did, but I didn't really expect them to turn the pocket Wi-Fi off within 5 minutes of me giving that notification on whatever day May 25th was. But so then I was without pocket Wi-Fi. Of course, I got Wi-Fi at home, so I thought, well, maybe Kenji's smartphone has a tethering thing and I could still do the live outside. But the other thing, I should say, in addition to the pocket Wi-Fi thing, and I'm not finished the pocket Wi-Fi story yet. Are you still with me? The weather report for a week previous said Friday would be pouring rain, and the weather report was correct. So I wasn't going to be able to go outside anyway, but I still could have done it from my house regardless. The next morning, I put money in my bank account because I'm leaving a whole bunch of cash for Kenji because he's got to finish up my taxes. And I noticed that the day before, either before or after I paid a visit to the phone shop, they took another 2-month payment, $9,700 out of my account. So I was furious, and then that is just when I said, you know what, I know it's going to take, I'm stressed now, it's just added stress I can't handle, and I don't have pocket Wi-Fi, and it's going to rain, and I don't know how long it's going to take to sort this out, and I just was the straw that broke the camel's back. So that's when I decided, you know what, I was kind of foolish to plan this, thinking that I would have a placid Friday. For all those reasons, I decided to cancel it, postpone it. I'll do one from Canada someday when I have pocket Wi-Fi. And yes, I went back to the phone shop, and I had got the same guy, really quite friendly Nepalese guy. I noticed the phone shops are starting to employ lots of people from that part of the world, Nepal, India, and so on, because they speak English. And it's Japanese staff don't know how to speak English because they didn't take my classes. So I got him the second day, and I said, hi, remember me? He said, yeah. I said, well, you took another payment. And he said, oh my goodness. So he checked, and I'm going to make this story, I'm going to finish the story up in the next 60 seconds. He checked on the phone and then came to me and said, I showed him my bank book that said the money was taken out, and he checked it twice, and it was on the phone with somebody from somewhere and said, oh no, it was definitely a mistake, and we're going to get you some cash back. Can you wait a few more minutes? And then he went and talked to the Japanese woman, maybe his manager in the store, and she seemed friendly or whatever, but oh no, they had to make 700 more phone calls, and he and she both came and checked my bank book. Like, it was excruciating, and I was so tired and had so much to do that I was in that shop for over an hour, where, you know, the first guy, whoever he talked to on the phone, approved it, but oh no, 700 other people had to approve it, so I did get my money back. Enough of that story. And it did take the last shred of focus where I might, you know, incorporate some fun stuff, reading or whatever. That particular day was shot. All right, so I am packed up and ready to go. My suitcases are right within 2 kilos each of them, or 1 or 2 kilos each of the well, I don't remember what the kilo limit is, but anyway, they're within 1 or 2 pounds each of the 50-pound limit per suitcase. And my big carry-on satchel is full to bursting, and my shoulder bag is going to be full to bursting. I'm expecting that my trusty weigh scale, you know, that you hook onto the suitcase and lift it up, it may not be trustworthy. It's never failed me before, but you know. And that I think it's $100 for, you know, 1 gram over the limit, and I'm just going to pay it and go, because I can't deal with anything other than I have money in my wallet. Here you go. Let me go back home. I have rice on the rice cooking, and I'm going to grill my last salmon with rice. I mean, I'm sure I might be able to find salmon fillets or whatever you call them in Canada, but I don't know. But it's my favorite Japanese food I eat for breakfast, as many of you know. And the last bit of delicious Japanese rice, there's half a bag left for Kenji to take home to his parents. And apparently I haven't explained this well enough. Kenji, as you know, I think, is coming later. In the interim, he's not staying in this apartment. He's going to live with his parents and have a nice long goodbye of several months with them before he comes. So that's what's happening. So the apartment is being closed out, and poor Kenji is left with a bunch of stuff. But I'm not too sad about that. I've done my best. So yesterday I managed to edit my Pride TBR video, which went up late last night, because Kenji was cleaning the toilet. I told Lindy that on Voxer. She said, yeah, you're doing a good job of delegating. I've had so many farewell parties and said goodbye to so many people, and I've gotten money from a fair amount of classes. One class gave me a $100 gift certificate that's redeemable at any department store, and they have given me that as a Christmas present. It's a $100 gift certificate every year ever since I've been teaching them, 11 years. They're all now in their early or late 80s. And I thought, oh, how am I going to spend this? My suitcase is already full, but I did go shopping, and I got a birthday present for Mom that's really light. Mom, if you're watching this, keep you in suspense a few more hours. Today is my mom's 79th birthday. I'm arriving home on my mom's birthday. And then I could buy a few books at the bookstore that were small, that would fit into my suitcase, and a bottle of wine, which was delicious, several days ago. So that's how I spent that. The farewell lunch at an Italian restaurant this past Tuesday, one of the former students, Naoko, attended. But then it turned out, no, she wasn't well enough to attend. She's got lots of mobility issues, and I don't know what other kinds of health issues, but for those reasons, she quit the class more than a year ago. But she really wanted to see me. So her husband drove her, and they parked right outside the patio of the restaurant where we were eating, and then we all came and talked to her. It was kind of like Queen Elizabeth. I'm going to put up a picture without her permission of the two of us. And she slipped me $100 herself. Couldn't believe it, and what could I do but accept it? So thank you, Naoko. And lots of goodbyes, and gonna have a goodbye with Kenji in a minute. It's not gonna be on the video. And he's gonna get me into a cab where I go to Shinjuku Station, get on the airporter bus at 10:45 a.m. It's about an hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on traffic, bus ride to Narita Airport, and I will check in, and then I'll have several hours to kill in the airport. So I think I'll probably get this video posted before I leave Japan. If not, I'll get it posted in Saskatoon or in Vancouver. I got about 3 hours in Vancouver. 9-hour flight to Vancouver. I leave Narita at 5 p.m. and get in local time in Vancouver 9:30 in the morning the same day. So you'll probably see that you may well see this video before I land. But anyway, that's today's agenda. Nothing special. I don't have anything profound to say at the moment. 13 years in Japan, it's an unlucky number. I've had some really fantastic experiences, especially meeting Kenji. Loved the students. Going to continue teaching several of them after a much needed 2-week break from anything while I decompress and recover from jet lag in Saskatchewan. Made some good friends, and really, second behind meeting Kenji is starting BookTube and getting so involved in bookish social media has just been a gift. There's no way I could have lasted. I don't even know if the relationship with Kenji would have survived if I didn't have this outlet, because he has such a busy life here that I rarely see rarely seen my husband since we got married. Just for an example, about 5 or 6 weeks ago, we spent the day together. We had a few errands to do in anticipation of the move, but mostly we just spent the day out and about, having lunch, window shopping, this and that. And that was the first time I think we've ever done that since we were married. We did it more before we got married. We were in the honeymoon phase, but yeah, we haven't, he just doesn't have time. So that, hence the urgency with which, we needed to relocate to a place where the work culture was sane so that I could spend time with my husband. But that's just a for example. I don't think I finished the thought, but let's move on to another one, shall we? Kenji and I get along really well. We've actually worked together. There's been some, grumpy moments, but nothing serious, and it's been a great test of our relationship that we've been able to work and delegate. You clean the toilet, because I can't get down on my hands and knees. Absolutely not. Those days are done. You want me to grovel? You're going to have to push me down, and you're going to have to help me back up. But no, that's gone really quite smoothly. And every couple has pet peeves. So here's one I don't think I've ever shared. In Japan, they have a temperature control, it's like a thermostat, but it's for the water, where you can set the temperature of the hot water, like the maximum temperature. And I remember early in our relationship, one day when Kenji was at my apartment before we lived together, he turned it down. He said, "Oh, that's too high." And he turned it down from, I think I had it at 45 maybe, Celsius. And he turned it down to maybe 40. And so then the next day I got had a shower. It's like, hey, this is cold water, for Christ's sake. So I turned it back up, and he never tried that again at my house. But once we moved in together, every freaking day, he turns it down. And then when I need to wash dishes, because I can't wash dishes with 40 degrees Celsius water, it doesn't even cut the grease. And I may get some of you disagreeing with me, but I'm right and you're wrong, as usual. Kenji's wrong about this issue, and rarely have we expressed any annoyance with each other, but it's just been a daily ritual. He turns it down, and then I turn it up. He turns it down, and then I turn it up. And I turned it up for the last time before having a shower this morning. Now, unless things have changed in Canada in the last 13 years, I've never seen any residence that had a thermostat-like digital thing where you turn up and down the hot water temperature, so that that will cease to be an issue between us. Thank God. I mean, you can control the hot water when you turn on the tap of when you're washing dishes, or you can control it in the shower, how hot or how lukewarm or whatever you want it. But oh no, he had to change it so that the max was too low for me. Anyway, we got through that traumatic issue in our relationship, and I'm leaving, and I think that issue is resolved because there's no such technology in Canada. I do have book stuff. So yesterday, I did manage to find time this week, in and amongst everything else. I did manage to finish Young Mungo by Douglas Stuart, and I loved it. I loved it with all my heart. It was beautiful. a really worthy second novel after Shuggy Bane. I didn't like it as well as Shuggy Bane, I don't think, but it was still a 5-star read. I loved it. I didn't just like it, I loved it. But I had a few problems. But let's talk about what I loved. I finally, immediately after I finished reading the book, watched Greg of Supposedly Fun's review, and it's a masterful review, and I agreed with some of his criticisms, and it's not so much that I disagreed with others. Maybe I disagreed, but it just didn't those things didn't hit me the way they hit him. But I certainly would echo what he said about how well Douglas Stuart, despite the family dynamics being very similar with an alcoholic mother and older siblings and a young gay boy, to make really vital characters that jumped off the page, and to be so different, like the mother in the two novels to be so different, and the son, the gay son, and it's really quite an accomplishment. Because I was nervous going in that it was going to be just too similar and just feel like I was reading the same novel, but it's a very different novel. And it explores a gay relationship which didn't ever develop in Shuggy Bane between the titular hero of young Mungo and the next door neighbor. Mungo is Protestant. The other boy, I think his name was James. I'm sorry, I'm a little flustered. I'm pretty sure it's James. Living across the back alley, it was Catholic. And a romance buds between them. And I loved the portrayal of their relationship. It was so real, and there was so much humor in the banter between them that just... And that's the part about young Mungo, the character. He had a real sense of humor, and thank God, because that sense of humor saved him from being kind of just a sad sack. He had so many problems, and he was such a loving, at times Cypher-like character. But when I saw him interacting with his boyfriend and the way, the repartee, it was just so joyful. That made the novel. That was the heart of the novel for me. And then, of course, this budding romance is situated in working class Glasgow with all this testosterone-laden religious bigotry and masculine bullshit, toxic masculinity, that it was such a precarious thing. And so it's not a particularly happy story. And that was done beautifully. I felt that Douglas Stuart overdid the violence. He didn't ever lose me, but he came very close to losing me. And Greg's comments are really interesting because he situates the problem there with the first storyline, which is where I'm not going to say anything about it other than to say that what Greg called the first storyline is when young Mungo is taken camping by two men who his mother met. She doesn't know them. She didn't know them, but she met them at an AA meeting and wants her son to toughen up. So that these two men take him on a fishing trip outside of Glasgow, and that doesn't go well. Greg situates the problem with that storyline and thought that if you just took that storyline out, it would be a much better novel. And I don't know if I agree, but what I do share with Greg in his critique is that there was just too much violence. I didn't lose the thread of the novel, but at times I came very close. It needed to be dialed back a bit, I think. Not just because I don't like reading such a violent novel, because I don't like reading such a violent novel when I'm so invested in the characters, but I think my critique is deeper than that it just became as sharply delineated and as deeply realized as the characters were, as young Mungo was, to put so much violence in his path. I started to worry that it was slipping into genre fiction, like just plot. It was really hard to hang on to who Mungo was when there was just, here's another horrifically violent incident. That's all I'm going to say about the criticism. It's why I think it wasn't as successful a novel as Shuggy Bane, but it's still a glorious 5-star read for me. and particularly because of the relationship. This young Mungo was 15, and I think James might have been a year older, 2 years older, and it was just so beautiful. There's so much more I could say. I'm not going to do a full review. Everybody, and their dog has reviewed it. I'm looking at you, Bob the Booker. I haven't watched Bob the Booker's review. Maybe watch that on the bus ride out. I know that Bob loved it, and Eric loved it, and I loved it too. So, just didn't think it quite worked the way that Shaggy Bane did. But by and large, Douglas Stuart has broken the curse of the second novel, because it was... a lot of people think it's better, and that's fair, that's fine, but I thought it was almost as good. So that's what I finished. You know me, I like a little light reading, so this other book that I started is this memoir by Natascha Wodin. She came from Mariupol, translated from the German by Alfred Kueppers. This is incredibly gripping. I'm loving it. I've read 40 pages, which I did very well to read 40 pages this week. And it's just a very, very simply told story about a really complex family. So this German novelist, Natascha Wodin, discovered in her late middle age or early senior years, she was born in 1945. I can't remember exactly when she makes these discoveries, but it's certainly well into the internet age, because it all kind of comes about because of the internet. Her mother committed suicide when she was about 2 years old or something like that. She was growing up in a labor camp for displaced people, in other words, slave laborers. They have been freed by this point. But her parents, Natascha Wodin's parents, were brought from Ukraine during the war as slave laborers. It's maybe the only really unknown story about World War II and the Nazis was the degree to which people from Germany watching this are going to be shaking their heads. Yes, we know about it, blah, blah, blah. But certainly, Natascha Wodin herself. You know what? I've gotten out of the habit of holding books up when I talk. So I'm going to, it's not a heavy book, Sean. Just keep it up for a while. Natascha Wodin herself says that it's really the part of that atrocity that was the Nazi era of Germany that a lot of people don't know about. And her parents were brought to Germany because of that, and that's why she was born in a displaced person camp in 1945. I can't remember if she was born before the war ended or just after, but anyway. She knew very little about her mother. She had one photograph she remembered very vaguely, so maybe the Natascha Wodin was 5 years old when her mother died, but she had vague memories of anecdotes about this aunt or that cousin or whatever, but really had very little to go on and couldn't find anything. And then the internet era came in, and she put a query on some Ukrainian genealogy site or something like that, and got an answer from somebody, and it suddenly, almost overnight, every assumption she'd ever had about her mother was upended. She assumed her mother was working class, and in fact she came from an upper middle class family, and a whole bunch of secrets. And the way that she's telling the story, it's just so gripping and moving, because what an awful life her mother had. It was too much for her. She committed suicide. Natascha Wodin grew up without a mother, and just learning so late in Natascha Wodin's own life what her mother's life had been like is described really evocatively. I'm loving it. It's harrowing, and it's a Sean book through and through so far. And lastly, I'm going to tell you about the book I'm going to start and perhaps even finish on the plane. I found out about this book from the fabulous book blog, which I am not as acquainted with as I should be, Booker's Chat. And the blogger is Amanda in the UK. It's one of the best book blogs out there. I'll put a link in the show notes. And she reviewed this new novel, came out in April or May, Sedating Elaine by Dawn Winter. And she wrote such a fabulous review. I got the ebook and the audiobook immediately, and I'm going to consume it on the plane. Now, the premise is, I guess I should have saved this for Pride Month, but screw it. I can't wait till Pride Month. It's too far away. She says, on the surface, it's about a young woman who goes about sedating her girlfriend so that she can pay off her drug dealer. I don't really like reading novels about drugs, but still, the more going into it, like she says, on the surface level. So it's about a lesbian relationship. Obviously about addiction issues, but it sounds also humorous. And then when I previewed the audiobook, I just fell in love with the audio narrator's voice. I'm not doing a very good job of describing this book, but there's a link in the show notes. You can do your own due diligence, but that's what I'm going to be starting today and maybe finishing. I think the audiobook's about 8 hours. So I'm also going to be starting one other book. This is potentially the next book in the series of Black South African literature that Bob the Booker and I are doing. We have agreed that while we lucked out in making the arrangements, booking the interview with the author, Mpumi Ntabeni, of his novel, The Wanderers, we lucked out publicizing that we were going to be reading it together and then we were going to interview the author, but we were really taking a gamble that we liked it well enough. So we decided we're not going to tempt fate by doing that again. Bob and I are going to start this novel by a black female South African writer and read maybe half of it before we decide that we like it or love it. And then at that point, we will publicize what it is and any of you that want to join in. But I don't want to get into a situation where and I don't know if we're going to be able to get an interview with the author or anything, but we're probably going to try. But I don't want to start that process until we know that it's not going to be a bail for me or a dud. So stay tuned for more about that, but I will be starting that this week. And probably before you see me on my first Friday reads from Saskatoon, as a Saskatoonian, I will have started some of my Pride TBR, which went up last night. Hey, you've made it this far. Just a quick little insert here to say that there's a little bit of a special ending. It's nothing that exciting, but you might want to stick around to the very end. So, signing off from Japan, you guys have been almost as responsible for keeping me happy here as Kenji has. Almost. On to the next chapter. Oh, I didn't show you my t-shirt. Saskatchewan, easy to draw, hard to spell. So if you've seen a political map of Canada, you know Saskatchewan is just like virtually a rectangle. Easy to draw, hard to spell. On that happy note, thanks for watching.
Japanese goodbye, whisper sayonara, smile and don't you cry, no more we stop to see pretty cherry blossom.